Hello, folks. Welcome to Sustained Overruled. I'm your host, the Anonymous Attorney. Over the weekend, news broke that Jonathan Majors was arrested in New York. If you do not know who Jonathan Majors is, he's an American actor. He was born in California. He rose to prominence in 2019 after starring in an independent feature film. And in 2020, he garnered wider attention after starring in the HBO television series Lovecraft Country. In this video, I am going to answer the question, why is Jonathan Majors not in jail? But before we take a closer look at the charges, as well as have a legal discussion, let's head over to CBS so that we can bring everybody up to speed.
One of Hollywood's fastest rising stars was arrested over the weekend here in New York in what police call a domestic dispute. Jonathan Majors is charged with multiple counts of assault and harassment of an unnamed woman. A lawyer put out a statement claiming there is evidence proving Majors is innocent, but there's already some fallout from the charges. The U.S. Army has dropped an ad campaign featuring Majors while the investigation plays out. Lilia Luciano has more on the story.
You put the gloves on my hands?
Actor Jonathan Majors, currently seen in theaters starring in the Creed and Ant-Man hit movie franchises,
Have I killed you before?
was arrested and arraigned in New York this weekend. Police say they responded to a violent domestic dispute involving Majors and a 30-year-old woman shortly after 11 a.m. Saturday. According to the criminal complaint, the NYPD said he struck the woman's face with his open hand, causing a laceration behind her ear, and grabbed her hand and neck, causing bruising. The 33-year-old actor was arraigned that same day and released without bail under a limited order of protection. The next day, Major's lawyer said she expects all charges to be dropped, saying there is video footage from the vehicle where this episode took place, witness testimony, and 2 written statements from the woman recanting these allegations, which proves that Mr. Majors is entirely innocent.
And what does that video need to show?
Whether or not Majors engaged in any sort of physical behavior that would rise to the level of criminal behavior.
Majors is also featured in the U.S. Army's recently rebooted Be All You Can Be ad campaign.
And if you have the will to make the world the best it can be, the Army has a place for you.
But a day after his arrest, the Army's marketing office issued a statement saying it is deeply concerned and is pulling the ads until the investigation into the allegations is complete. Major's next court date is set for May 8th.
The next hearing could be a pretrial motion, essentially, or it could be a statement of, we're dismissing the charges.
For CBS Mornings, I'm Lilia Luciano in New York.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. It's been reported that Majors has been arrested for assault in the 3rd degree, harassment in the 2nd degree, as well as criminal obstruction of breathing, which has largely been reported in the media as strangulation. In New York State, assault in the 3rd degree is a Class A misdemeanor, as is criminal obstruction of breathing or strangulation. Harassment, on the other hand, is, this might surprise you, but harassment in the 2nd degree in New York State is considered a violation and it's not a crime. What is considered, or what constitutes harassment in the 2nd degree? There are 3 ways one could possibly be accused of committing the violation of harassment in the 2nd degree, one of which is kicking, striking, or shoving somebody. The reason why I mention the classifications of the offenses that he's accused of, it's because they determine whether or not a defendant, such as Jonathan Majors, will be released on their own recognizance, whether the court will set non-monetary conditions, whether the judge will order electronic monitoring, whether the judge will set money bail, or whether a defendant will be remanded in jail. In this instance, Jonathan Majors has been charged with 2 Class A misdemeanors and a violation. A defendant accused of committing a misdemeanor in New York State will generally either be released on their own recognizance or they'll be released with non-monetary conditions. When they're released on their own recognizance, or what the court calls ROR, that generally means that they do not have to adhere to they do not have to post bail or abide by certain non-monetary conditions, such as reporting to pretrial services or the like. The condition that the court releases them upon is that they attend their court dates. That's basically what it means when somebody's released on their own recognizance, as was the case with Jonathan Majors. So why is Jonathan Majors not in jail? The answer is very simple. He's accused of committing a number of several crimes, most of which are misdemeanors. Generally, misdemeanors do not warrant monetary bail, and the judge has no authority to remand a defendant in jail. He enjoys the presumption of innocence. And number two, there have been major bail reform laws in New York State. And because he's primarily charged with misdemeanor crimes as well as one violation, the court has no authority to remand him in jail. And for most misdemeanors, even though they're Class A misdemeanors, the court generally has no authority to impose monetary bail or electronic monitoring. In this instance, he was released on his own recognizance. There are, however, a few exceptions to whether a defendant should be released on their own recognizance or not. There are instances when the court can impose monetary bail or electronic monitoring or non-monetary conditions where a defendant would be required to report to pretrial services, even though they're only charged with misdemeanors. And Jonathan Majors is accused of committing one of those crimes, which is criminal obstruction of breathing. And the options that are available to the court is to release him on his own recognizance, to set non-monetary bail conditions, electronic monitoring, or set bail. However, the court can only do this if the underlying charge is a domestic violence offense. There have been some reports in the media that the offenses are domestic in nature. However, one of the reports that I've read from Los Angeles Times, his attorney is quoted saying that her client is completely innocent and provably the victim of an altercation with a woman he knows. Keyword, woman. His attorney further claimed that the woman was having an emotional crisis for which she was taken to the hospital. The use of the word woman here is very important because his attorney is distancing him from the alleged victim. She, in a sense, is trying to convey that there's no type of domestic relationship between the alleged victim and the defendant, Jonathan Majors. One other thing is that Majors likely does not, I've not looked at his criminal background, but he likely does not have a criminal record. If that's the case, he likely does not have any failures to appear. And if that's the case, there's no indication to the court that he'll abscond or fail to make his court appearances. As such, the defense probably was able to convince the court that even though he is a man of means, he's not a flight risk. In essence, the courts have to consider the least restrictive means to ensure a defendant's attendance in court. If there's nothing in Jonathan Majors' background that would signal to the court that he's a flight risk, then the court rightfully has to release him on his own recognizance. I would be remiss if I did not mention that the alleged victim has recanted her allegations against Majors. That's another important point or critical point as to why Majors is not in jail. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let's have a discussion down below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.